Welcome to the Tree Off the Tee podcast, and today we bring you episode number 79, and delighted to be joined on this call this morning by Gary Murphy, former European Tour professional and a golf professional from the K Club, Sky Sports commentator amongst other things, and all-round good guy, a good man for a golf tip as well. I've availed of those over the years. Ian, good to have you on here as well. Great to welcome Gary to the podcast for the first time. Gary, thanks for coming on. Huge pleasure.
Pleasure, lads. Nice to be on. It's kind of ironic. It's number 79. That's why I retired. It was shooting 79. So.
Oh, God, yeah. Look, a couple of stories in the last few days, actually, Gary, right? First one, right? Probably a bit lighthearted, but Matt Fitzpatrick getting that snub, I suppose, from the sports personality of the year. Sure, had to be expected, really, isn't it? I mean, there's only two golfers that ever won, I think. Faldo in 89 and Joy Reese, I think, back in the 50s. So golf doesn't seem to be high up, I suppose, on the personality front.
I think a couple of things on that. I think we've been incredibly lucky here in Ireland for the amount of coverage that golf gets. If you look at, the three young lads that just got through, well, they're not young lads, but they're young in their careers, like McCabe and Murphy and Hurley. If that were to happen in England, it wouldn't even, it always fascinated me when I played in the UK, how little the newspapers, apart from a couple of journals, how it's probably reflected in the sports personality of the year. There were two people on that that I'd never heard of before. Now that's my ignorance and not covering general sport, but I think we're blessed in Ireland or the golfers in Ireland are blessed how much coverage they get. Like if, let's say, Seamus had won the US Open, the place would have come to a standstill, you know what I mean? So it's unfortunate for Matt Fitzpatrick. I think his achievement that certainly should have been respected a bit more than what it has in with the BBC. But then the BBC don't really cover golf anymore, so it's kind of logical for them. They're hardly going to have him up in lights if they're not actually covering it on their TV screens. I think they're just doing a couple of highlights packages now, which is a pity too, because golf to a certain extent I think should still be on terrestrial TV, but you have more eyeballs on it, and this is kind of for that, it's a big sport. Certainly other sports have a lot more coverage on it.
The Masters. So Fred Ridley came out yesterday and said that, regrettably, recent actions have divided men's professional golf by diminishing the virtue of the game and meaningful legacies of those who built it, right? But although we are disappointed, these developments are focused as in the honour of tradition. So basically, the live golfers are going to get in, right? You go back to Martin Slumbers, I think, a couple of months ago. He was more boisterous in the fact that, well, it's an open. It's always going to be an open. He didn't really allude to any of the live golfers or maybe his disliking or anything of it. But look, it was always going to happen, wasn't it? And probably, sure, it is for the betterment of the game. We need Cameron Smith. We need those guys playing in the Masters. We need them all to come together.
Yeah, I think it is. I suppose the main takeaway is that they've commented on it, Augusta. It's not really their fight to fight, I guess. It's more of certain tours, the DP World Tour and the PGA Tour, trying to protect their interests. But the end game with Augusta is like they can invite me to play the Masters if they want to. It's an invitational. But I just think that maybe it's a way of dampening down the live story. Had they banned those live guys, can you imagine? It's a quiet time for golf journalists. It would have been manna from heaven if that had been the case yesterday. So the ranking system is basically the top 50 get in, tournament winners, so major winners. So Cameron Smith ticks those boxes. I think it'd be dreadful for former champions. He's behaved the last few months, but he's a former champion of the Masters. It's steeped in history. It'd be a shame for former winners. If you take the personality out of it, even the likes of Patrick Reed, who's a very divisive character. He's earned his right to play there until he's 60 odd or whatever the case may be. And I think it'd be bad for the sport. I still don't know really where I stand on the whole lift thing. I think they've been incredibly clever the way they've bought the Asian tour, which is, a great tour. I was fortunate enough to start my career out there. That's the smartest thing that they've done. But I'm kind of happy to, I want to see, like all of us, you want to see the best players playing in the majors. And the other side of it too is it's just another tour. Obviously there's the political situation, which, we just had a World Cup in Qatar. So I think it's more of the political football. Is it more of the political football, or is it just, a lot of people that earn their living through the PGA Tour trying to protect what they have? But I suppose if I was being 100% neutral on it, which is difficult to be, I'd rather see them going 72 holes and just trying to create another tour rather than some gimmicky 54-hole music playing. It's I don't know if you can jazz up golf. Like, you either like it or you don't. You're either a fan of it or you're not. I don't think that because you're going to, sex it up, that it's going to, get more people to, even that golf sixes thing. I mean, that was atrocious. It just doesn't work. You either like the sport or you don't, really.
On that, Gary, and you make a good point, trying to kind of jazz up the sport and change it around, as you say. I often, toy with that and see, is there a need for the people that are actually truly interested and play this game, or interested in it from a viewing point of view, don't really care, don't really mind. Do you think what Live Golf has achieved, let's say, in the disruption, as Rory kind of put it in an interview yesterday, do you think what they've achieved in this first year will give them the platform to make some changes next year? Do you see them maybe going to 72 holes? What's going to happen with this whole kind of the world rankings? Are they going to be recognized? What's the next? It's fascinating to see what the next 12 months is going to bring. Will Greg Norman still be there? Will he not? Like Rory's comment that he very much was the perfect guy to be the disruptor. But now maybe if they're going to build on that platform, is it time to move the Live project on a little bit more?
It probably is. I think when you see from the issue they're going to have world rankings, if they do get world rankings, obviously all their guys have dropped down because they haven't earned any points. Excuse me. When you see from the DP World Final there, where there was a reduced field and how low the world ranking points were, so that's obviously going to be an issue if there's only 48 guys playing. Shotgun start, I'm not really a fan of that. I think. Sorry, I've got a Springer Spaniel snoring here. I hope it's not getting picked up in the background.
That's okay. It's Christmas time.
So was you.
Yeah. I think they will have to, do something with the format. I don't know how big a success it has been, really. If you think that they've probably, I'd say, comfortably thrown $1 billion at this thing for 8 weeks of golf, with absolutely no return whatsoever financially. And I'm not sure, like, we're in an era of, startups.com, and these tech companies come in and, everyone wants to buy them, and you realize pretty quickly that a lot of them are not really that solvent. And that's kind of what it looks for me with the Live thing at the moment. How sustainable? I know they've probably, ridiculously deep pockets, but it does come to a point, how sustainable is the whole thing. So they'll probably have to go more mainstream, I think, to get more credibility for it.
Have you watched many?
I have watched. There's been 8 of them so far. I watched a little bit of the first one, and I thought it was like, looking at an intermediate scratch cup on YouTube or something. It was just like, what's going on here, And then, so I watched a bit of the first one. I haven't sat and watched it for any extended period of time. I do have a problem with the money as well. I do have a problem with how vast the money thing has become. I was very disappointed, and probably naively, but I was disappointed with the PGA Tour's reaction to throw crazy, the whole PIP thing, to throw crazy money at it. I don't think, like, we've a situation in football now where, you can almost, and I've loved football. I'm 50 years of age. I've loved football since I was a very young boy. But the money at times does bother me a little bit and takes a little bit away from it. And I don't really want to see golf. Like, they're getting enormously well paid as things are. I'm getting 4 million for a 3-round event, getting 120 grand just for teeing up with no cut. Now, I know these guys have, within reason, have earned their way to get onto that pedestal, but if you look back to Lowry when he won and went to it, then it was quite genuine. Like, he didn't know how much his winner's check was. And there's something still a little bit beautiful about that. Now, I'm not foolhardy enough to know these guys earn a living and they don't turn up for free either, but I still love the fact that golfers have to make a cut on a Friday to earn their wages as such for the week. And it's probably never more prevalent than in Europe at the moment. We've seen through COVID, and I think the DP World Tour have done an amazing job to keep the ship afloat, really. But there's many guys out there struggling, and that's part of the sport as well. It's disappointing to see amateurs come out and just get millions of dollars straight away. I don't think the sport works like that, but however.
Yeah, very interesting. Couple of points there that we need to kind of flesh a little bit further. Like, I suppose, we look back on Phil Mickelson's comments and the absolute stick and everything that happened at that time. But, in ways, some of what he said has proved to be true. They suddenly found this war chest of money and have thrown it in there for these elevated events on the PGA Tour and that PIP fund, as you said. And it is a bit ridiculous. Like, I think, in fairness, not against their own Shane Lowry, it's not his fault that he picks up an extra 3 million at the end of the season for being popular in the social media stakes. If that's kind of the analysis or the essential, how would I say, how the PIP is evaluated. But it is crazy, that kind of money. Also, to be honest with you, Gary, the guys, for me, and I don't use this word or phrase lightly, but some of those guys that sold their legacies or sold their what would I say, their brand for that kind of money, you'll tell me, you're a former player on the European Tour, you know what it's like to be there, to reach the end of your career and have an opportunity maybe to cash in. There's one or two of those guys that come under that heading, which is maybe fair enough. There's other guys who had potential Ryder Cup captaincies coming down the track. We have a Ryder Cup captain that was in place. Like, there's so many facets to this story, but I'll be honest, it hugely disappointed me for some guys, one of them Irish, that we followed for a long number of years and decided to go a certain route when genuinely they had a legacy built in the game, from winning majors, from being involved in iconic Ryder Cups, and potentially, and I know it's a very competitive environment at the moment with the amount of past Ryder Cup players to get that captaincy, but it hugely disappointed me that some of those guys chose that route. I don't know whether you have comment on that or thoughts on that, and I know a lot of these guys you played with over the years as well.
I actually had no problem with the likes of Graham. I was actually messaging Graham before the whole thing to go, the best of luck to you. I hope you make a fortune out of it. I think for McDowell, where he was at in his career, the way he plays the game, I think he was running out of gas. He was basically going to struggle to keep his PGA Tour status this year. Now, with the career that he's had, he's always going to get starts, but it's an amazing psyche when you lose your status and you're getting those invites and you don't have a schedule, and it's such a slippery slope. So I think it was probably a money player for McDowell, and I totally get that, and good luck to him. And I've always been a big fan of Graham's. I think he's probably absolutely maxed out everything he's had out of the sport, probably similar to Harrington, that he's gotten the very most out of himself. And that's the greatest compliment you can pay any sports person. It was just disappointing the way, he kind of thought he was the smartest guy in the room. And he was a bit unfortunate, like his first week, that he sat there beside Dustin Johnson, who's obviously not going to say anything. And Graham probably felt the room and thought he had to say more than he did. And, he got a bit of egg in his face with that. But listen, everyone has said stupid things. There's no need for the character assassination that we always have nowadays, I think, with, cancellations and all that kind of stuff. But all those kind of mid-40 guys who've paid their dues and stuff, this was a bit of an olive branch. I don't mind that. But just the thing that's annoyed me is just go and stay gone as such. That famous line from Pulp Fiction, be gone and stay gone. That's what's been disappointing, the way they've tried to work both rooms. They shouldn't have done that.
Do you think when this kind of court case, whatever comes up in March, or that things will change? It has been. It's been an awful story, really, with the players turning up to these European Tour events, I suppose, that are actually live, whereas it just wouldn't happen in the PGA Tour. Is that down to the deep pockets of the PGA Tour and their lawyers versus what we have here with the DP World Tour?
Yeah, I don't think we were in a situation in Europe where that we could turn down guys playing tournaments. Even this will probably never get said, but even the point, that tournament in Wentworth, the atmosphere was atrocious. But, it gave a lot of copy to the tournament when the sponsors probably couldn't have been more happy with the coverage that event was getting outside of the event. But it was, like, I've known Ian Poulter since 1996. I played mini tours in the UK with him back in the day. So I've known him a long time. I've always, he's Marmite Poulter. There's no denying that. But I've always gotten on pretty well with him. He's always been, generous to me. He's another McDowell in the sense he's had an amazing career. Phenomenal what he's achieved in his career. But the way he's, played it out is the reason why it's such a successful career. So he was never going to go meek and say nothing. And, Pulse walks around, with his chest 4 inches in front of his head. You know what I mean? That's just the way he's wired. That's why he's achieved so much. But the end game really, is the connection with the public, with the fans. And if these guys are, strutting around like they own the place, that's where people disconnect. So it's the margins are tiny, for public opinion nowadays. It's such a scary place, really. Like I would hate to be playing the young lad coming up now with social media, and there doesn't seem to be any escapism from the thing. It's there all day, every day. Your phone is in your hand. But I wouldn't be surprised if that court case doesn't happen. And something happens before that, and they draw a line in the sand and go, listen, we need to just get on with this. Do your thing. The only problem is they're playing in mainland America, and that is difficult, really, for the PGA Tour to accept, and that's understandable. Now, whether the simple way is at government level, if they don't sanction these events, that can stop. Now, I know we're restrictive practice and all of that, but sometimes it's not that easy to get into the States on a visa, so that could be a simple solution. I would certainly, if I was involved in the PGA Tour, that'd be the angle I'd be at.
If there's a tournament announced to be in Doonbeg tomorrow morning with the Live, I think it'd be massive, wouldn't it? It's some of the top players down there in the world. Just compared to the Irish Open, say in the last 3-4 years, I mean, the quality of it, Rory probably didn't play with Seamus already playing this year. But like if you had Dustin Johnson, Brooks Koepka, all those guys down the Doonbeg, would the place not be rocking? No? Yes? All right.
I don't know, really. Like if you look back,
Ian, I won't turn on the telly to watch any of the 8 tournaments, so I sure as hell won't get in the car to drive down to County Clare to watch them either. My honest view,
but it'd be a long road anyway. So,
but like, to be honest with you, like Gary has said it, like apart from Cameron Smith and maybe DJ, there's not too many other guys that hugely excite me anymore. Now, I probably do have a chip on both shoulders as regards the whole live golf thing. I just don't want to go near it. I've no interest in watching it. And I think Gary made a point. It's the whole public perception of this. And maybe not everyone is as passionate as we are and have followed golf for as long as we have. But you made a point, Gary. I wonder, what do the likes of the guys that went to live, what kind of do they care about public perception? Do they live in a parallel world where they don't actually feel the mood in the room from the general golf public? Do they care? All of these things, they probably don't care, to be honest. But like I said, I mentioned legacy. I don't want to get into talking too much about Henrik Stenson, but that for me, look, Graham came out, and you're right, and kind of felt that he needed to be a front and center spokesman. I thought that was off the charts. Now, you're right, maybe he was caught in the rabbit in the headlights at that first particular press conference. But for me, for Henrik Stenson to accept a Ryder Cup captaincy, and be it him or a PR company come out with a statement of what an honor it is after obviously being a European, playing the European, having such a successful career, world number one, iconic Open Championship win. For someone to renege on that, in my view, it's unbelievable. And I actually think he probably got off slightly lightly. I remember out on tour this year, some of the Swedish girls were telling me that he was getting absolutely hammered at home in Sweden or whatever. But it seemed to pass over quick enough, and Luke Donald was announced, and on we go. But it's hard to believe that someone could accept that level of a job and a title, an iconic role, and then renege on it. To me, it sullies his whole career.
The only thing with Henrik is that, and it's well documented, he's had a lot of financial trouble off the course. He's allegedly, lost his money twice. And I just think that was a financial play for him. And I do say this a lot, we come to Irish Opens and you see everyone there, and everyone thinks they're millionaires. And that is certainly not the case. I'm guessing it was just a financial play. And if you have a situation where you've got a wife and 2 kids, he's living in Florida, I've no doubt it's an expensive place to live and to do all the things you have. And when you've been used to vast wealth for the large portion of your career, and all of a sudden you're, because he's played very poorly the last 3 or 4 years, probably a similar thing almost to Darren when Darren won his major, and his form kind of subsided dramatically. But I think for Henrik, I think it was a financial play, and I actually don't begrudge him doing it. The whole Ryder Cup thing, the captaincy, the math on it is probably worth, I don't know, 3 or 4 million to be Ryder Cup captain. He's getting offered allegedly 20 from Liv. It sets him up financially and his family for the rest of his life. And I think it's easy for people to be judgmental in situations like that on people. When you've like Henrik would have probably turned over the guts of 50, 60 million in his career, and he lost it all. So I get that. I understand him doing that. And if you look at him, he has gone off. There hasn't been a peep out of him since he's done it. He's done it properly. The same with Martin Keimer. Westwood is different. Big fan of Lee Westwood's, but he's been very disappointing the way he's reacted, I think. But Henrik has just done his thing, and there hasn't been a word out of him, and you can only commend him for that. But I also get people are disappointed because most people would go, God, I'd give anything to be the Ryder Cup captain. But when you've lived in that, I don't know how many Ryder Cups he played in, probably 5 or 6. And there's an opportunity to do something different and guarantee, his future. I think now maybe he leveraged it a little bit, because I remember being in Abu Dhabi in January, seeing him talking to certain people before it was announced, and I'm going, he's going to be the next Ryder Cup captain. So, I think Pádraig made that comment too, that it was disappointing the way he kind of leveraged it a little bit. But listen, it's business at the end of the day. There's no emotion when he broke.
Yeah,
Sergio, as you mentioned earlier, Sergio, and I'm a great fan of him, but Sergio, the way he went about it was very disappointing. I mean, the comments, there was just no need for those comments. Why speak so disrespectfully about the tour? Which I why do that? Like, there's no need for that whatsoever.
I know, and it's maybe they can put a ban in for insurrection or something, because that's kind of what it was. Like, and the Kimmage piece of Rory was fascinating. But like, for Garcia to be texting Rory at 5:30 in the morning of a US Open Thursday morning first round, when Rory is an afternoon tea time, I just thought, like, seriously, and they were actually good pals.
Yeah.
They were, at weddings and all that sort of malarkey. So they were kind of friends outside of the sport. Hugely disappointed. You talk about, like, Garcia is the one that's tarnished his legacy more than any of them, really. Leading Ryder Cup points. First came to prominence in Ireland, winning an Irish Open and Druids Glen in '99. So, he would have, when he was that precocious young talent, so he would have a lot of fans here. And then obviously there was a falling out with him and Harrington. So obviously everyone on this island's going to side with Harrington. But yeah, Sergio, that he's probably been the biggest disappointment of the whole thing, really.
Let's move on from Liv. Let's talk about our own, the guys that we're proud of. Look, we'll just bounce off the two. We can talk about loads of them, but I just picked out, let's have a chat about Rory. As you said, we've seen a lot of him over the last few weeks, with that 2-week article with Paul Kimmage, with the piece with Greg Allen over the last couple of days. Sum up his year, Gary, very briefly, and maybe throw a focus onto next year.
I think his year was kind of what you would normally expect of McIlroy. He had a phenomenal season, obviously very consistent in the majors without actually winning one. I think the whole Liv situation actually helped him, where he got a little bit angry and a little bit nasty, and I think that reflected in his golf. And he had a brilliant year. Unfortunately, he's getting judged on majors at the moment, and he hasn't won one since 2014, which is a long, long time.
Is that fair, Gary?
Yeah, it probably is. Because we're judging Jack because he's won 18, and Tiger because he's won 15, and all the others, Gary Player and Tom Watson, and all the greats that have ever done it, and the Grand Slam of golf. So do you win your fifth major at Augusta, and it's the Grand Slam, and is that probably worth having 7 or 8? It possibly is. And that's what he has to deal with. It's no different than what Messi had to deal with in the World Cup final. And that's my whole thing on the Liv thing, is when you watch sport, you watch it for a couple of reasons. You watch it because it's what you like to do, it's entertaining, and people are doing something that you can't do and you wish to be like them. But the number one thing is that it has to mean something. And a Messi in that World Cup finals meant so much more. You think of all the money he has, all the wealth he's created, all the tournaments that he's won. But his big thing was, I have to do something that Diego Maradona has done. And that's what that whole football game is about. And the tension was palpable because someone is achieving, something that he's dreamt about his whole life. So McIlroy is in that situation when majors come around. And we all know that he's more than good enough to win another, fitness-wise, health-wise, he can easily win another 4 or 5. But it's just getting over that psychological or mental barrier of, can I be myself when it means so much? And that's why it's, fascinating. Like, if, Rory wins the Masters, it would be better than if he joined Liv and won the 14 events they're going to play next year. So that's because it means something. And at the moment, the Liv thing doesn't mean anything, because they're just, Mickey Mouse events for the sake of it. So we watch sport because of the emotional journey that sports people take us on too. So he does have to win more majors. And listen, not that he cares what I say, he knows that more than anyone, and that's why the Open was heartbreaking. It wasn't upsetting; it was kind of heartbreaking, because it would have been the perfect kind of Cinderella story to get back on the major train. But I think he's probably in a better place physically as well. I think he's a lot happier with his game. As we all know, lads, it's an evolving game. You're learning every day you go out there. I'll probably get back playing, and I think I've found the secret, and it'll be gone 3 holes later. That's just the nature of the sport. So, and these guys are no different too. They're all human beings.
Yeah, very true. Gary, just when you say about you getting back out playing, and as part of my research, I saw that only a month or 6 weeks ago you passed that grand old barrier of 5-0, and I'm thinking of Mr. McGrain and the chat that you had on a podcast last week. You've no ambitions to try and tee it up on seniors tour or get back to be a bit more competitive or anything?
Yeah, I'm going to try play a few.
Good man, great, brilliant.
So I'm like, the options are basically try play in Europe, try do well. If you do well, try go to America and have a crack at America. I haven't competed now for, it'll be 12 years. So it kind of depends how that whole thing shakes up. I'll either get out there and absolutely shit myself and hate it and play rubbish, or else I'll embrace it and really enjoy it. So it just depends how it all shakes down. But I'm gonna try play a few and see. I have an exemption from when I played the junior tour, I suppose you could call it now. So I can play for a bit and see how it goes. I still love golf. Like, I did that podcast with McGrain the other day, and sure, I love golf. Damien played golf for money, so I've played golf for money too. I don't know if there's any for free, but no, I'd like to give it a crack and see what happens.
You say there's about 12 years with competitive, and played on the European tour. How did you navigate kind of that transition, Gary, from not playing to then, I suppose, doing things, maybe forming another career? Had you the gig maybe with Sky Sports kind of lined up as that's something I could do? Did you have sort of things lined up so when you just left that it would be kind of an easier transition rather than going, oh Jesus, I'm a professional golfer, I'm finished here in the European tour, and what do I do for the next X amount of years?
No, I didn't have a plan really. It was an exceptionally difficult time because I made a decision in January 2013 really to stop playing golf. And then at the end of that month, my dad died suddenly. So it was a really difficult time, and it was kind of, as we'll all remember, financially, there was a big recession going on with the property crash, and there just weren't really any opportunities out there to kind of start a second career. Greg Allen buzzed me and asked me would I go into RT one night to do a few minutes on the show about golf, and it turned into doing kind of 8 years of radio just on. And then the first night I went in, actually, my what was it? It was about, I don't know, 4 or 5 days after my dad died. So I actually just did it to kind of get out of the house and do something. Drove up to Dublin, and I remember my sister Hilary came up with me just for a bit of company, because my dad was like my best pal as much as anything. So he was, great character. I got into golf because of him. So it was a difficult time. So that's kind of how the media thing started. And then it's difficult to get to break into Sky and European Tour Productions and all that sort of stuff. So that was kind of a slow burner, and I did a few and did okay. And but TV is weird, because the way the TV works is, the rule of thumb is if they don't say anything to you, you're doing a good job. And if they're screaming at you, you're not doing a good job. But then, so they weren't really saying anything to me at the start, and I'm like going, it's just, here's the microphone, start talking. So there's no real training to it. And it's a sink or swim thing. And I was, as I've always been, even when I've always been one to ask questions. And that's something that annoys me about some of the younger players nowadays. But so I was, quizzing guys all the time, what do I need to do better? There's no way you're the finished article. And you don't really get that on TV, and that's the kind of frustrating part about it. But it worked great. I did some media, did some TV, and then the whole COVID thing kind of ended that really. And then I was unbelievably fortunate the way the K Club came along. So I kind of transitioned into, I think I'm on about my fourth career at this stage. So, and I guess that's life. You know what I mean? You just kind of roll with the punches and make the most of what you have. But I still enjoy doing a bit of TV. It's not what it once was. I do a bit of corporate commentary now with a friend of mine, John Hawksworth, who played on tour, obviously, and it's probably the funniest man in the world. But so I enjoy doing a bit of that. That still gives me a bit of connection with the sport. But it's just changing so much now. The tour is completely unrecognizable from when I played on it. And I, kind of don't really have any pals out there anymore. So it's just more of a work thing than anything else.
Gary, just to finish off the Irish, Shane Lowry, talk to us about his 2022 and I wrote an article the other day and I kind of had him down as, obviously it's a while ago now, but he finished third at the Masters, and I think if he's going to clock up another major, which I think he's right in the prime of his career now and has a really good chance to do that, I fancy him winning the green jacket at some stage in his career. What do you think of his chances going into the majors next year and the year that he had this year?
I think he had a brilliant year this year, very consistent, but very super important to round it off with the win. And especially, he's a habit of winning big tournaments. I think for anyone that's played on tour to win in the UK, there's just something different about it. Those tournaments seem to have, like I was saying earlier, they just seem to mean, a little bit more than regular events. And iconic finish at Wentworth, hitting that 5-iron hit into the last. He's unlucky for a shot of the year because obviously Fitzpatrick will get it with winning a major. But for me, that was probably one of the shots of the year. It's interesting space for him next year because the way the PGA Tour has changed. There's a lot more pressure on the top players now to play a lot more. So I think this next season will be interesting to see how they adapt to having to play, certain tournaments. I'm not sure I'm a big fan of it really. I understand it, why they have to do it, but I think it's important to trust. If you look at the way Harrington has mapped his career, he's always kind of played within reason when he wanted to play or where he wanted to play. But there's a lot of pressure, I guess, from the tour to play. So even for Rory, and John Rahm mentioned it too, they're going to have to play a lot of tournaments. And, the general public might go, oh, well, whatever. But, tough luck on them. But when you're trying to compete at the absolute max every time you tee it up, you need to be fresh. You need to be rested. You need to be ready and keen to want to play well every week. And when you're playing a lot, you can have funny weeks and things can fester. So I think majors are certainly something for Shane, but I think he needs to win more regular events. He's good enough to be winning at least once or twice every year. I think he's that good, and that's obviously a very difficult thing to do. You can look at great players that have only won, 5 or 6 events in their lifetime, but they've been wonderful golfers. So I'd like to see him probably win regularly. I'd love to see him win another event in Florida or win, the Canadian Open, those kind of things. He's 20th in the world. So there's always this pressure to win more in majors because it's a narrative, it's the narrative that's out there. But I think if he can, win 5 or 6 PGA Tour events in his career, maybe another major, win a couple more in Europe, that'll be an amazing career. But he's in a sweet spot in his career at the moment. And I do agree with you, majors are in that conversation. But when he won in Abu Dhabi, what that led to. So I'm a firm believer if you can win more minors, it's easier to win majors.
Very much so. We turn to my boy Seamus Power. He seems to be playing like a man possessed in the last 2 years, really. Phenomenal rise and seems to be more comfortable than ever. And predictions for him for next year as well.
Probably similar, similar to Shane. I don't think there's that much between them, really. I think in Ireland, we'll always kind of rank Lowry a little bit ahead of Seamus Power. But if you're looking at the numbers and performances in the last, as you say, in the last 2 years, Seamus Power is a serious contender. He's leading, I think still leading the FedEx at the moment, which he's probably, he's literally got no credit for that, which is just this bizarre. Now, I know some of the guys haven't played a lot in the fall, as they call it in the States, but he's actually leading the FedEx. So it's insane the levels he's got to in the last couple of years. And it's one of those things in sport that you just can't really put your finger on. It's a light bulb moment of, I really am good at this and this is for me. And I don't see anyone around me. I'm just going to get my head down and try to be the best version of myself. And you got to give, as much as Bo gets a lot of credit for Shane Lowry's, I think Shane was 75th in the world when Bo started caddying from and lost his status in America. And he's now comfortably, conversations for winning majors. And Bo's got a lot of credit for that. So Simon Keelan deserves a huge amount of credit for the role he's played in, helping Seamus, just to be Seamus. That's the hardest thing to be when you're out there contending against superstars, just trying to trust your own self. Same thing with Seamus, just keep winning regular events and who knows what's possible. But I'm very excited for the top three going forward next year, but I'm also thrilled to see 3 new faces come on tour in Europe. We've had a horrendous run with trying to get new guys out on tour and stay out on tour. It's hard enough to get out there, but it's even harder to stay out there. So I'm very excited and delighted, for Gary Hurley. He's been through the ringer in his career. Delighted to see him get his opportunity and get his card, and John Murphy too. And obviously Tom McKibben is a hugely exciting talent as well, who'll get probably most of the headlines.
Yeah, you're just talking about Gary, and you're looking. What was the switch that just flicked? In terms of have no sort of status anywhere in any tour last year. Plays the Alps, plays brilliant, gets the challenge, just keeps on going, gets the European Tour card, and then he's had 3-4 starts and he's made 3-4 cuts. It's just such a difference from where he was this time last year.
Yeah, I think Gary probably made the mistake that a lot of young players, and I would say this to every young player, if you're a high-end amateur and you're achieving and you're winning championships and you're realistically have an opportunity to decide to turn professional and play the game for a living and earn a living, because that's what it's all about. There's the dream factor of I'm going to turn pro and I'm going to be better than Rory and play Ryder Cups, and I did all that. You write your goals down, you turn pro, and sure, I should have more money than the Saudis now with some of the goals I had. But the reality is, you've created this platform to step up to the next stage. And a lot of guys think it's their golf swing. That's going to be the difference between my golf swing. I'm just not good enough for my golf swing. And they go down this rabbit hole of running around between coaches and chopping and changing. And then all of a sudden, you don't know where your starting point is. Gary Hurley has and had, and he'd probably shoot me in the head for this now, but he's an amazing golf swing. His golf swing to me doesn't look very different to what it did when I played a game of golf with Gary in K Club, actually, when all the guys played in the Walker Cup, when I was working for a golf management company, and my boss was keen to sign a few of the Walker Cup players. And he just had the most beautiful golf swing. But he obviously didn't trust it. And he was chopping and changing, and he went to some different coaches. And then I don't know the ins and outs of it because I don't have a personal relationship with Gary, but he went to Ed Coughlin at the start of I don't know, maybe last year, the year before, whenever it was, and reappraised everything. And the transformation has been wonderful, because I get probably the most nervous I've ever been in my life was when Paul Dunn was leading the Open on that Monday at St Andrews, and I didn't even know the chap at the time. But it's kind of back to the live thing, it means something. So I'm a huge supporter of any young Irish guys coming through. I think there is a problem. There's certainly an issue with how these guys are being managed, or who's looking after them, or there's a lot of guys falling in the net. There's a lot of guys turning pro that shouldn't be turning pro. There's no doubt about that too. But and so it's great to see a guy that was potentially, going to do really well, have a career in the game, lose it all, get it back again. And he's a sound lad. He works really hard. He's trying to get the most out of himself, and you can only wish those kind of people well. And John Murphy's really exciting too, because he's fresh at it. He's only his second year as a pro, and he's got on tour, and he probably thinks it's really easy. So, and then there's Tom McKibben. So there's a good story there. And the important thing with it, hopefully they can get out there and do well and win and drag another few with them, because that's the way the whole thing works. I was lucky in my time that there was probably 10 Irish on tour when I got out on tour, and that helps to get more guys out there.
Yeah, for sure. It's amazing, isn't it? Even Ian, what you said about the lads over the last few weeks there, those tournaments just as we lead up to Christmas now, getting a bit of early momentum, confidence. Seamus Power spoke to us last week about belief and trust. If you think of those four words, they're easy words to say, but like in professional golf or professional sport in general, if you can get some of that kind of belief and early confidence or whatever, and just feel that level of comfort, I suppose, for these guys, Gary, to get out there and not seismically change what they do or what they have done. They're good enough to get there. They just have to actually try and resist the temptation to start messing around or changing. At least settle in for a year and see where does your level fall. And fair enough if you need to make changes and whatever. But I think a lot of it is to find that comfort level and have the trust and belief that you're good enough to be there. But a great start for those guys, in fairness. Gary, let's talk a little bit more about the K Club. We mentioned it last week with Seamus. Obviously, he's delighted to be on board, as Leona Maguire is as well. The K Club has done some fantastic work over the last couple of years. Big investment in the golf course there. Obviously, we're going to see all the benefits of that and be delighted to go up and watch another Irish Open at the K Club next late August, early September, is it, I think? But must be very exciting to be part of everything that's going on in the K Club and to kind of see how the name and the status of the K Club is really coming back to the very top of Irish golf and as a European venue.
It is. It's an honor as much as anything to be part of. It's a wonderful place to work. I think our new owner has kind of created an atmosphere where he loves golf. Golf is a very important thing. I think you see a lot of resorts where, a consortium will take over and first thing they'll do is cut back on the golf course. We can shave a bit of costs here and there, where Michael has done the complete opposite. He's kind of revamped the whole place. And he's put a very good team in there. Paul Heary is the CEO, who is a phenomenal CV. He's been in some high-end positions. So he's a great awareness of what's required. Conor Russell has come in as director of golf. He's boosted the membership enormously. He's brought a great vibe to the place, and they're both into golf as well. And I think that's kind of the theme that's running through the place. And then Jerry Byrne, who's course superintendent, who has been there since the year dot. He's done so many Irish Opens. He knows exactly what's required. But it comes down to money too. You kind of need to put your money where your mouth is, and the place did need a revamp. And so the chance to redo all the fairways and just bring it back to the kind of level that it once was at back in the early days is hugely exciting for us. It's exciting for members and for guests that come. But the owner was very keen on golf in Ireland as much as anything. Even commitment to the Challenge Tour, which I think is as important as Irish Opens. You know, we've 3 Challenge Tour events in the next 6 years, which are played on the south, and then 3 Irish Opens on the north of the Ryder Cup course, as most people would know it. You know, and it's like I thought Mount Juliet was fantastic this year. There was such a great vibe. I think they did a brilliant job down there, and it's kind of up to us to, you know, keep that up there and possibly try and improve it a little bit if we can. But there's a ferocious amount of work goes on behind the scenes from a tour point of view, and it's just up to us to kind of facilitate what they want. I think the date is very important too. Moving to September, there's huge pressure on players schedule wise now. And the PGA Tour and the European Tour, DP World Tour are going, you know, we have to guarantee as much as we possibly can that the best players are going to be there on that given week. We're very lucky that, you know, we've kind of superstar home players who can carry the event themselves, but, you know, we want a bit more than that too. So we're hoping for a big field. September is a challenge too as well. You know, the course is going to play differently. You know, we saw this summer we had an unbelievably dry summer, which puts a lot of pressure on our course staff as well. So yeah, there's huge challenges, but there's great excitement, and I think, and I say this all the time. It used to drive me mad when I was playing. Like the Irish Open is on next September. It's €130 for a ticket for 6 days. Like that is probably 8 hours a day of entertainment. You know, it's the ideal Christmas box or a New Year's present or a birthday present to someone. It's free for under 16s. You know, so I think it's really good value. I used to get haunted when I was on tour with tickets for this and tickets for that. But I think it'll be a spectacular few days. The best players in the world are going to be there. You know, we're hoping Mother Nature, as with every Irish Open, plays her part. That's a big thing. But if we could get, you know, 18 degrees and a little bit of sunshine, we'd certainly take that. And I think it's going to be a spectacular few days.
Absolutely can't argue with anything that you've said there. You're a great advertisement for the K Club, Gary, that's for sure. But looking forward to getting back there. We've great memories of Irish Opens in the past. Obviously, that iconic Ryder Cup in 2006. So the K Club has a very special place in Irish golf, in world golf, and it's great to see it support, as you say, golf in general with those Challenge Tour events. That commitment over a 6-year stretch is huge, and we're excited to get there next September, Ian, aren't we?
Yeah, oh yeah, because I was up there with Conor back in March, and he was just we went out for just a look around the place, and he was showing me the fairways that were being done. And he said basically like they'll be transformed in the next 2 or 3 months. Now I was lucky enough to stay up there for a couple of days during the summer, and literally 2 or 3 months. I mean, the difference between then and June was phenomenal. And lucky enough, I got to play there probably in July, and I mean the place is superb. There's not a blade of grass out of it, and again, just the vibe up there, and the new kind of restaurant that's opened up near the south course as well. It's a wonderful place. It's a great experience, in fairness.
It is, and like the thing that fascinated me. Working there in from out, you know, we all know the golf clubs can be tricky places. There's a lot of geniuses and a lot of opinions, but the members are amazing. Like I've honestly in 2.5 years not had an incident or a crossword with anyone. They're really, you know, the guys that have done well in life, you know, they've worked hard and earned a few bob, and they just have a great outlook in life, and the support they've given me has been incredible. And it's you know, and Michael's kind of mantra is he wants it to be a fun place to be, and that's certainly what it is. You know, and I see myself as very fortunate to be involved in that.
Look, it's a review of the year, so if we could go back through a couple of things, from yourself and Harry there. Major of the year, which was the one that most, I suppose, grabbed you or kept you glued to the seat? Start with you, Gary.
Oh, it'd probably be St Andrews, I'd say. I'm a huge fan of Cameron Smith. I just love the way he plays golf. I think the way he won the Players, that up and down he made in the last was outrageous. I don't know him personally, but from chatting to Bo, he seems to be a really, really cool guy. The way he played that back nine, where, you know, everyone probably at that venue wanted McIlroy to win that tournament. So the way he dealt with that, that was probably, you know, because the Masters, they're my two favorite majors, the Masters and the Open. Not necessarily in that order, but I've never played the Masters, but I lived in Augusta. I went to college there. So there's, you know, that was the first tournament we would have seen as kids. But I would say my major of the year was probably Cameron Smith's win at St Andrews. You know, the 150th Open and all that went with it, and it meant so much to everyone to win it. And he was the guy that, you know, won the battle with himself coming down the stretch. Now, I suppose if you look back and kind of put it under the microscope, it was a pity that they weren't playing together. But listen, you can't have everything. I think Rory had his chances and just didn't take them, and that's sport. He wasn't trying to miss putts. It's just the way the thing worked out. But that was my major of the year, probably by a stretch, I think.
Harry, where are you on?
Yeah,
Same?
hard to argue with that, to be honest. I'm the exact same as Gary. I probably go Masters, Open are my two, and possibly in that order. Look, Rory's final round in Augusta was special. The two of, was it himself and was it Morikawa? I think he was playing with a hole in the bunker shots on the 18th, and
Yeah.
as Rory said, it gave him maybe the kind of bounce and belief leaving Augusta in a happy place, as he described it, and it set the tone for the rest of the year in ways. But yeah, look, I don't know. I was there for the week working for radio at the Open Championship in St Andrews, and it's funny. I got to tell you a quick little story. On Tuesday morning, I woke up, and the house that IMG had was unbelievable location, like 2 minutes from the first tee, and I woke up and went on to Twitter like at maybe 6:20, and just pure luck on my Twitter feed, someone had posted a picture of Rory already on the fourth green. He was out doing one of these kind of dawn practice mornings, and I wasn't due to be in until maybe 10 or 11 or something. We weren't doing a whole lot on the Tuesday radio wise, but got up straight away, threw on the gear, just about washed the teeth, I think, and straight out the door. And I managed to catch him on about the sixth green. And there hadn't been a whole lot of spectators cop on or whatever, but managed to walk the whole way from 6 pretty much home, I think, the whole way around. And all that was there was himself and Harry. Jerry was there, his dad, and Michael Bannon. And I had credentials or whatever, and was kind of able to kind of slip in a little bit and watch closely. And the crowd did gather from the turn, maybe about 9-10 more people realised. But it was an unbelievable Tuesday morning just to watch him go through his practice and his routine. And when he came off, kind of, and you go underneath the grandstand, a bit of a chat with him just as he kind of walked away. He was all done and all by maybe 10 o'clock. Like, it was ridiculous, you know, but that's the way he wants to do things on a major week. And obviously then you get assigned to a group. I think I might have walked with his group on Friday, didn't manage to get his group on Sunday. Some senior reporters got that gig, but it was nice to be around and to be involved, you know, when he's suddenly in real contention. But look, you know, Ian, I'm an absolute massive Rory McIlroy fan, and I was gutted that he didn't manage to get it done that day. We had to hop in a car and get away to the airport very quickly once the thing ended. But yeah, like, you know, what a missed opportunity. Gary's right. Like, he hit the ball great, and he hit 18 greens that day, but just really didn't hit it close enough, really didn't hole anything. He didn't do a whole lot wrong, and Cameron Smith did a hell of a lot of things right. But that was gutting, and I just really hope and pray that we live to see the day where he's gonna knock off a major, and hopefully it's sooner rather than later. But I've been saying that for a few years now, haven't I, Ian?
Yeah, but sure, look, we're all Rory fans. I was gutted like everyone else. You know, the whole world, I think, even over there at St. Andrews, and the weather we had over there was just amazing. But like, they talk about shot of the year, and obviously
what's your major of the year?
That's just the US Open. It always is the US Open. I'm always US Open, Masters, Open Championship. That's the way I am always. So I don't know. It's Payne Stewart back in the 90s. I've said it too many times. It just grabbed me, and that's where I really got golf. But shot of the year, I think Rory's second shot to 17 has to be up there. I thought that was absolutely phenomenal. You know, when under the gun, you know, when things hadn't gone to take on the road hole and go straight at that flag, I thought was absolutely amazing. And the place just went absolutely bananas for that. But so that would be my shot of the year. But the major, I think Fitzpatrick and Zalatoris was a great battle coming down the stretch.
Gary, your shot of the year, I think you mentioned it already.
Yeah, even just when Ian was saying it there, like Cameron Young's shot on the 72nd hole, like that's got to be a contender for shot of the year as well. That's right. He's a guy, he was the gone off meat in between two slices of bread, wasn't he? He's just the same to get any credit for his performance. There's been so many of them, really. I think Justin Thomas, his PGA win was spectacular. Zalatoris, his putt to get in the playoff. I think a lot, shots of the year, putting never really seems to get a mention in them. But, Zalatoris is another very exciting name. I know he's had his back problems and he looks to be back fit again. But I think all the majors were spectacular this year. Scotty was just kind of too good at Augusta, which took a little bit of the, we want a penalty shootout when it's a World Cup final type of thing, and he took that penalty shootout out of it. But shot of the year, you'd probably say, if you go back to that Open, probably Smith's putt on 17. That won that tournament for him. So if I'm going to say that Open was my, because the first putt was phenomenal, but there's always a bit of hidden hope with that. You're trying to nurture that around that bunker. There's a little bit of hidden hope, but to finish it off, which he's so good at finishing off putts, to finish it off and hold that putt for par, to give himself that space, I'd probably put that down. For putt of the year, let's say, and you have to give Fitzpatrick's bunker shot on the 72nd hole a shot of the year.
Yep. I'll agree with that. We'll move on quickly. Fitzy's bunker shot was unbelievable for him to go ahead and win his first major. Ian, I've been having my little fivers each way on him for many a year.
Well, that's the thing, is that I had him back since January. I just said, look, sure, I did my research. Sure, everyone knew that he'd won the amateur championship there, but I got him at a very, very nice price back in January, and I was only delighted to see him pull through at my favorite major. So it was brilliant. And can we do? Go on, Gary.
It's such a cool double as well. To win a US amateur at Brookline and to win a US Open. I mean, that's it's just a phenomenal achievement to go. To be the great amateur and move into the pro ranks and get back to that level as you were as an amateur is something that very, very few golfers, have done in the history of the sport.
We do predictions. I know it's very early in the year, but we do predictions for next year's major, and then we'll wrap it up because we don't want to be holding on to you too long, Gary. So go on, Masters, kick it off. Who do you think? We'll start with you, Harry, this time. I know it's early, but you might as well have a bit of a laugh anyway.
Lowry. I really feel, yes, he's won. Obviously, he played unbelievable golf in 2019 to win that Open and blitz the field, as we know, on Saturday. But I think, look, we said it to Seamus Power last week. These guys are that good that they could win any major. But genuinely, I honestly think a Masters is perfect for Shane Lowry. And I think watching him there as we did last year, Ian, he was gutted that he played so well and got so close and all the rest. And as you said, look, Scotty was probably never going to be beaten that week. But I think if Shane Lowry's honest with us, I think he probably feels that is definitely up there with his best. He probably feels he can compete in them all, like I said, but I think he really fancies Augusta. I think he knows he's plenty good enough to win around there. I think it's not a cliche when we say he's gifted with his hands and his short game. he is. You can see the prowess and respect that he has amongst his peers. And I think in his career, and please God, he has another whatever, 8 competitive masters ahead of him. I think he's a right chance of winning at Augusta. So I'm gonna nail my colours very firmly to Shane Lowry win the Masters.
Harry, where are you going? Who are you going with?
Well, my heart says Rory McIlroy. And I've been sweet on Justin Thomas for a long time around Augusta. I think he's developing enormously as a player. Got another major this year, the PGA. His connection with Tiger. So I'll go heart with Rory and head with Justin Thomas.
Yeah, I'm heart with Rory, but head is Cameron Smith. He's a pretty good, decent record around there. So I think Cam Smith might do it. PGA Championship, Oak Hill. Gary, where are we going?
PGA Championship is turning into kind of a different major as such. I think for many years it lost a little bit of its edge. I think it's kind of getting back there now. It was a fantastic event this year. It's hugely exciting. I suppose it's easy just be you got to see a major next year for John Ram. So I'm going to go John Ram for the PGA.
Yeah. Harry, where are you going?
He's just robbed my player, so I'm not allowed to pick John Ram then. Sure, lads, it's impossible. Like, sure, where do you go? Like, who's trending? Who do we? I always like to. It's like that thing of Matty.
Will
Fitz,
you just
like,
pick a player? Will you?
No,
right?
no. I want
to
speak out loud what's going on in my mind here. Did you tell me, or did you tell Pádraig Harrington on the podcast 2 weeks ago? How many majors is he in next year? Well, he's in that one, obviously, isn't he? So, do we think?
Yeah, he gets in the US Open.
Because of
gets in the Open Championship.
He's not in the Masters, wasn't that it? He's in the other 3, I think.
Yeah.
So, like the year himself and Shane both finished 4th. The year Matty Fitz should have won the PGA Championship. Go back now, it's either 2 or 3 PGA Championships ago. Matty Fitz hitting the water on the par 3 17th and took 6 or something when he was in the top 10 anyhow. The reason I'm so passionate or so annoyed about it was I had him back to finish top 10 at huge odds and he blew it up. But I think Pádraig Harrington might appear again at a major championship. Give me all 4 of them now. I don't want to nail it to the PGA, but I think he still has enough game, still has enough belief to contend at the right major given the right conditions. So Pádraig Harrington for me.
Right. Well, I'm going to go with my buddy Seamus for the PGA. I think it's right up his alley. It'll be a high scoring event. High scoring is in that it'll be like what, -4 or 5 Oak Hill. I think it's typically been that sort of a golf course. So I'm going to go with Seamus. I think that might be just where he gets his first major. So yeah, where are we? Open Championship?
US Open.
US Open. Yeah.
Go on, Gary, quickly, and we'll leave you go.
I think it's excuse me. LA is going to be difficult. It's going to be a scrappy affair. Someone who I think has potential to win a major will be Tyrrell Hatton. So I'll go. I think he might have a big year next year, Tyrrell Hatton. And he's generally a fast starter. Tapers off a little bit towards the end of the summer and then kind of does well at the end of the year. So I'll go Tyrrell Hatton to win the US Open. Back-to-back English players.
Harry.
I'm going to go with a live golfer to win the US Open. Dustin Johnson is going to have a re-emergence and come out and win in the LA Country Club. Dustin Johnson for me.
All right, I'm going to go John Ram. John Ram, I think that's really got his major. Last one, we're off to where? Royal Liverpool.
Yeah.
So, Gary, where are we going?
Royal Liverpool. This is very much. I'm going to go with my heart and go. Tommy Fleetwood's going to win at Royal Liverpool. huge connection, obviously, being a local lad. Seemed to kind of get back form-wise this year. I think he had big equipment problems with his driver, and he's much happier now. So I'd go hard for Tommy Fleetwood. I'd like to see him win an Open Championship. But you got to go for McIlroy around Royal Liverpool. He's won it there before.
Yeah.
I think. Now the only problem is it's the final major of the year. If he's not in the first three, the pressure could be ramping up. But you got to fancy Rory's chances to come back to somewhere where he's won before.
Harry.
Yeah, agree. Yeah, heart and head, says Rory McIlroy for that one. I do have to throw Justin. I suppose if I throw enough names in there, I'll get it right. But yeah, you'd like to think Justin Thomas will definitely go ahead and win another major this year, or at least go very close. But yeah, we've got to go with Rory as well. I want to see him win a major next year. I hope it's in the first half of the year rather than wait until the back end of the year. But yeah, let's see. Royal Liverpool, Hoylake should be a great venue. Even going over there and staying in Liverpool is a good city, so it should be a good week.
Yeah, well, it's full out, so I go Rory as well. Yeah, I just think he'll do it as Gary's already said. He's won there before, and yeah, familiar place, you never know. All right, we round it up. Trying to do the Christmas cracker.
Yes,
Quiz.
Gary, we always finish off with a little Christmas cracker quiz. Hope you don't mind. Now, these are rapid fire questions. They don't always have to be rapid fire answers, but I'll kick it off here. Brussels sprouts or mince pies?
Brussels sprouts.
Man,
Yep.
right. Have you done the Christmas swim?
Christmas swim, no. But I have in the last, I don't think I've had a hot shower now for about 14 months. And
Really?
I cannot recommend it highly enough. Cold
Really?
showers.
I'm
Wow.
serious.
Yeah. So my friend Ronan Brannigan is big into sea swimming, and he does with his young fella who's the same age as my young fella. But my little lad's not a strong enough swimmer, but that is in the future next year to do a bit of sea swimming. My dad was a lifeguard in Tremor years ago when he was growing up. But no, the cold showers, that Wim Hof stuff is amazing. I couldn't, anyone who struggles with circulation, get yourself, now do it properly, get a bit of advice on it, but it's amazing for your body.
Really? Is it an in and out job now? You in there for a while?
Starts off in and out, Ian, and then I'm up to about 3 minutes now. So, but it was because I've been sick the last couple of weeks, and that was a big challenge. I've had a really bad chest infection, but I still kept doing the cold showers, and it was unreal, especially when the weather was really cold, because obviously the water is a lot colder. But it's unbelievable how much warmer you feel when you get out.
Nothing rapid fire about those answers.
No.
Next one. A tin of roses or a tin of heroes?
Oh, heroes all day long.
Yeah, agree, definitely. Home Alone or Die Hard?
Home Alone.
Okay, well, Ian, why did you give me all the confectionery ones?
I don't know. I was
A
thinking,
tin of USA biscuits or Kimberly Mikados?
Ooh. USA. I'm not really sure, but yeah, USA maybe.
yeah. What's the best present Santa ever got you?
A pool table.
Nice.
So,
Very nice.
and I ran down the stairs, and our Christmas tree was in the sitting room, and it wasn't in there. And then I ran across to another room, which kind of now sounds like we lived in this palatial home, and I ran through another room, and it wasn't in there. And then I ran into the kitchen, and there was nothing in there, and I was crying, and I ran back to go through this other room to get back up the stairs to tell my mum and dad that Santa never brought me any present, and it was in that room, and it was just the best crack. We used to have pool tournaments and all I think I was in about 5th class or whatever, and the entertainment, it was a 6x3, and the entertainment and the fun we had out of that was amazing.
Isn't
And
it
the same,
amazing? Like
we got a snooker table, 6x3, and it was all laid out there from Santa with the balls, in the pyramid shape. I'll never forget it. Yeah, it was the same. It was brilliant. Yeah,
isn't it amazing?
We still see it, then use it for a goal post during the winter time and play football with it. So it got many uses. Yeah.
Isn't it amazing the things we remember? Like, Gary, you're probably going back 40 years there, and I was the same 6x3 snooker player at the time. I don't know, was I maybe 6 when I got it? I was wearing glasses at the time. I remember at one stage I had a patch over my eye to kind of correct my eyesight, but I used to turn the glasses upside down because I wanted to be Dennis Taylor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's amazing the stuff you remember. And then, Gary, just on a note, I'm delighted to hear you mention your father. Like, obviously I'm from Carlow. Your father would have been very well known in the whole southeast area, and obviously for what he did with junior golf and his association with Kilkenny Golf Club. I know you're a very proud Kilkenny man, even though you don't necessarily live in that region right now. But I'm delighted to mention your dad, and he was very well known. My dad would have known him, I think, maybe through business years ago. I always remember JD Murphy being mentioned. So nice to remember him at this time of year as well. Gary, huge thanks for coming on the podcast. Great to have you on, and nice to kind of wind back through the year, and as we look forward to a new year ahead, a very exciting 2023 in the world of golf. But huge thanks for coming on.
Not at all. Pleasure. Thanks for having me, lads.